Have you ever left a car dealership feeling like you'd won, thinking you'd made a great deal, only to realize later that something wasn't quite right? The car was gleaming under the lights. The new car smell still lingered in the air. The salesperson was smiling confidently, saying they'd managed to approve everything for you. The payment fit your budget, the term seemed long enough not to be a burden right now, and at that moment, everything seemed perfect. You get in the car, turn the key, feel the steering wheel in your hands, and think. It worked out. But let me ask you something. Have you ever stopped to think about who really won this game? Because that's exactly where many people lose money without realizing it. It's not the car itself, not the brand, nor the model. The real loss happens in the way the decision is made. The dealership doesn't just sell a vehicle, it sells a feeling of achievement, of advancement, of status, of relief at having been approved. And while you're focused on the car's shine and the monthly payment, there's a psychological and financial game happening behind the scenes. Silent, well-rehearsed, and extremely efficient. Have you ever been through this? Have you ever felt like everything happened too fast, that decisions were pushed with phrases like, "This offer is only valid today," or "No one else can get this payment anymore"? This is the moment when most people believe they are in control, when in reality, they have already embarked on a path that can compromise their personal finances for years. And the most dangerous thing is that this type of car loan trap doesn't seem like a trap. It seems normal. It seems like everyone does it. What almost no one tells you is that the problem isn't financing a car, but doing it without any clear rules, without a limit, without criteria to protect you. The decision becomes emotional, not rational. And when that happens, the car ceases to be just a means of transportation, becomes a fixed burden on your financial life, draining income, delaying plans, and creating a false sense of progress. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. There's a simple rule, used precisely to avoid this type of situation, that acts as a real shield against the dealership's strategies. A rule that puts you back in control of the negotiation, protects your income, and prevents a consumer decision from becoming a financial prison. It's known as the 24-10 rule, and understanding how it works can completely change the way you view buying a car. And before we continue, tell me, do you know anyone who's stuck in a long-term loan, paying a lot for a car that's no longer worth what it cost? Or maybe that someone is you. Because from here on out, the conversation stops being about cars and starts being about choices, financial protection, and conscious decisions. And that's exactly what we're going to start unpacking now. And perhaps, as you listen to all this, some memory is coming to mind. A specific day, a conversation, a signature made with more emotion than awareness. Sometimes it's the feeling of tightness that appears every month when the payment arrives. Sometimes it's just that silent thought of, if I had known this before. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has touched you the most so far. Share your experience, even if it's just a venting session. When you write, it's not just about you, it's about other people who will read it and realize they're not alone in this situation. This type of conversation almost never happens openly because talking about bad financial decisions hurts. It affects pride, expectations, and plans. But that's exactly why this space exists. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people who are about to fall into the same financial trap as with a car without realizing it. Your comment could be the warning someone needed. Before walking into a dealership thinking they're in control, and if at any point you felt that this reflection opened your mind, that it made you look at your personal finances in a different way, it's well worth liking this video. A like seems simple, but it signals that this type of content needs to continue being delivered. That practical financial education, without glamour and empty promises, really matters. That's how the message reaches further. Now, if you want to continue understanding how to protect yourself from decisions that seem harmless but cost you years of your financial life, subscribe to the channel. The idea here isn't to tell you what to buy or not buy, but to give you criteria, rules, and clarity to make better decisions. Subscribing shows that you want to be part of this community that prefers awareness to impulse and that chooses to learn before paying the price. Because from here on out, the conversation will become even clearer, more practical, and more revealing. And, understanding what comes next, may be exactly what will prevent you from repeating a mistake that the system expects you to make. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding why a car is the most well-disguised financial trap completely changes how you view consumer decisions. A car doesn't present itself as a problem. On the contrary, it arrives as a solution for transportation, for comfort, for status, for a sense of progress. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Unlike other debts, the impact of a car doesn't come all at once. It comes in layers, silently, almost invisible at first. The first is depreciation. The moment you leave the dealership, the car is already worth less than it cost. Not because it's gotten worse, but because that's how the system works. However, this loss doesn't appear on your bank statement. It doesn't arrive as a monthly charge. It remains hidden while you continue paying as if the value were still there. This creates a disconnect between what you owe and what you actually have. Then come the long-term installments. They're sold as a relief, as something that fits in your budget, but in practice they prolong the mistake. A decision made in a few hours ends up following you for 4, 5, 6 years. And the problem isn't just the installment amount, it's the accumulated impact. During that time, your income is already compromised before you even decide anything else. Your financial freedom diminishes without you even realizing it. Hidden interest rates are another detail that almost no one clearly calculates. They don't hurt at first because they come diluted, masked, normalized. But when you add it all up over time, you realize you've paid much more than you imagined. And then there are the invisible costs that emerge later. More expensive insurance, maintenance, taxes, fuel, small expenses that seem harmless in isolation, but together weigh heavily month after month. Everyone knows someone who's stuck in a car. Sometimes it's a friend, a family member, a coworker. Sometimes it's ourselves. The person doesn't hate the car, but feels its weight, feels that something is out of place, that their finances aren't going well, that there's always not enough room to breathe. And then comes the hidden truth. The problem was never the car. The problem was buying it without a clear structure, without criteria, without a rule to protect the impulsive decision. When you look at it more consciously, you realize that this isn't just a matter of money, but of mindset. It's about how we're led to confuse desire with need, approval with achievement, a low installment with a smart decision. There's a whole emotional and financial engineering behind the scenes that makes you say yes without realizing the real impact of that choice on your journey. And it's precisely here that this conversation begins to reach another level, because understanding this trap isn't about generating guilt, but about transformation. It's about seeing things more clearly, making more conscious decisions, and breaking free from the automatic mode that the market expects. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this is where many people finally understand that there's a simple way to avoid becoming a hostage to a decision that should make life easier. The 4-20-10 rule wasn't created to stop you from buying a car, nor to make you live frustrated or always put it off. It was born precisely as a practical response to the silent traps we just exposed. It's a rule of protection, not prohibition. When you hear 20% down payment, don't think of it as an absurd sacrifice. Think of it as a filter of reality. If you can't save 20% of the car's value, maybe that car is too big for your current situation. This down payment reduces risk, lowers interest, shortens the impact of depreciation, and completely changes the game. You avoid starting the journey owing more than the asset is actually worth. This is mindset, not cold math. The second point, the maximum of 4 years, is where many people feel the shock. Because the market has normalized excessively long terms, turning mistakes into eternal commitments. 4 years is not a random number. It's a limit designed so that a consumer decision doesn't span too many cycles of your life. Beyond that, you start paying for something that no longer delivers the same emotional, financial, or practical value. Extending the term doesn't solve the problem. It only hides it in the background of your routine. And the third point, perhaps the most liberating, is the 10% income limit. Here's the hidden truth that almost no one tells you. It's not the amount of the payment that matters. It's the space it steals from your life. When a car consumes more than that, it starts to stifle choices, prevent plans, and hinder important decisions. You end up organizing your life around it, not the other way around. The rule exists to preserve balance, not status. Do you see how this changes everything? The 4-20-10 rule isn't against consumption, it's in favor of awareness. It doesn't protect banks. It doesn't protect dealerships. It doesn't protect any system. It protects you. It protects your financial journey, your adaptability, your emotional peace of mind. It's a simple framework that sets clear limits where impulse usually takes over. And when you understand this, something powerful happens. Your decisions become lighter, more rational, more aligned with who you want to become. It's not just about cars. It's about a mindset transformation. It's about stopping making decisions blindly and starting to see the real impact of each choice before signing anything. This clarity changes how you enter a negotiation, how you listen to a salesperson, how you react to pressure. And that's exactly where this conversation begins to reveal something even more interesting about what goes on behind the scenes of this whole game. Comment below, I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this is where the 4-20-10 rule stops being just a concept and becomes a real protection against the behind-the-scenes dealings of the dealership. When you enter a negotiation without any clear criteria, the game starts off unbalanced. The salesperson knows exactly where to push, on emotion, on haste, and especially on the Xiaoyi payment. Everything revolves around it. It fits in my budget. It's just a little more. You won't even notice the difference. And that's how big decisions are reduced to small, almost harmless numbers. The hidden truth is that the installment payment never tells the whole story. It hides the time frame, the interest rates, and the future impact. When you approach the situation with the 20-4-10 rule in mind, this trick simply loses its power. The focus shifts from how much does it cost per month to does this respect my limits? The conversation changes level. You no longer react to the discourse. You evaluate the structure. Extended payment terms are another point where things often go wrong. The salesperson offers more months as if they're helping, when in practice they're just pushing the cost forward. Without a rule, this seems like a solution. With a rule, it becomes an immediate warning sign. 4 years go by quickly in life, but they go by too slowly when you're paying for something that no longer excites you, no longer represents an achievement, and has become just an obligation. The 20-4-10 rule cuts this cycle before it even begins. And then comes the classic phrase, this amount fits in my budget. What almost no one explains is that fitting in your budget doesn't mean fitting into your life. A decision might fit today and be suffocating tomorrow. It might fit within your income, but steal choices, plans, and breathing room. When you set a limit of 10% of your income, you take away the power of that narrative. It's no longer about feeling, it's about real impact. It's about preserving balance in your financial journey. Artificial urgency is perhaps the most emotional trick of all. Last unit, today's offer only, changes tomorrow. Without structure, this generates fear of missing out on opportunities. With rules, urgency loses its effect because no offer is worth more than a well-thought-out decision. You begin to realize that the real risk isn't losing the car, it's losing control. This is when that silent shift in mindset happens. You understand that the 20-4-10 rule doesn't limit you, it positions you. It changes the power dynamic in the negotiation. You stop being led and start leading. The revelations become clear, the behind-the-scenes mystery fades, and that feeling of now everything makes sense begins to emerge. Because when you have criteria, nobody decides for you. This clarity transforms not only the car purchase, but also how you approach important decisions. And when that happens, it becomes impossible to go back to autopilot, because awareness begins to outweigh impulse. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when all of this fits together, it becomes clear that the real gain was never the car itself. The real gain is the freedom that comes with conscious decisions. The car may be comfortable, beautiful, new. It may even represent a personal achievement, but none of that compensates for the silent loss of peace when it starts controlling your financial life. And that's the point that almost no one shows you behind the scenes. It's not the object that weighs you down, it's the dependence created around it. Following the 4-20-10 rule doesn't keep you away from consumption. It brings you closer to control. It doesn't say, don't buy, it says, don't give in. There's a huge difference between owning a car and being a slave to it. When you respect clear limits, The car occupies its rightful place in your journey. It serves you, not the other way around. Your decisions cease to be reactive and become strategic, aligned with a long-term mindset. Financial peace is born precisely there. It's not the absence of bills. It's predictability. It's knowing that a choice made today won't turn into regret tomorrow. It's waking up without that feeling of tightness, without the invisible obligation to maintain a standard that no longer makes sense. Freedom of choice isn't about buying everything you want. It's about being able to say no without fear. It's about being able to wait, adjust, and recalculate your route when necessary. Many people confuse financial education with living paycheck to paycheck as if it were a life of constant sacrifice. But the hidden truth is different. Financial education is about avoiding the emotional burden of poorly thought out decisions. It's about not having to justify your choices to yourself every month. It's about not looking back and thinking that one impulse cost you years of opportunities. The impact of this goes far beyond money. It affects your peace of mind, your plans, your relationship with the future. When you understand this, you realize that the 4-20-10 rule isn't about cold numbers. It's about respecting your own life. It's a framework that protects your autonomy, your adaptability, your personal journey. It allows you to have a car today without sacrificing choices tomorrow. And this awareness changes everything, because once you see this pattern, it becomes impossible to ignore how small decisions shape big consequences. This change in mindset doesn't happen all at once. It's built up. And when it begins, it spreads to other areas, other decisions, other moments, when you realize that freedom is worth more than appearances. Comment below. This makes sense to me. If you've made it this far, it's because this conversation made sense on some level. It wasn't just about cars, or just about money. It was about choices, awareness, and freedom. And if this kind of reflection helps you make decisions with more clarity, it's worth subscribing to the channel. That way, you can continue to follow content that doesn't push you towards consumption, but helps you think before you decide. If you'd like, leave a simple sentence in the comments, just so I know you stayed until the end. You can write, "This message was for me." This creates a real connection with the person on the other side of the screen, and helps this space continue to exist with this kind of more honest and direct content. And if at any point you felt that this conversation resonated with you, that it addressed something that nobody usually talks about, please like the video. It shows that this type of approach matters, and that it's worthwhile to continue exploring this path further. There's a video over here that perfectly complements this topic and further expands on this perspective about financial decisions and freedom. Click there and continue reading.